Welcome to another edition of the Talking Fantasy Baseball podcast. I'm your host, Eric Henriksen, alongside Josh Day. Josh, how you doing?
Pretty good. What's happening?
Nothing much. Just watching first round picks get tossed around like they're pennies in our 10
Whoa.
team league this week.
Oh
Just
my God. Right.
insane movement. We'll get to that maybe a little bit later in the show. But on today's
Sure.
show, for sure, we've got another player spotlight. We're going to spotlight number one prospect. Got the call this week, Roman Anthony. And then we got more prospects for you in Prospects Palooza. And then we've got some interesting players of the week that we're going to talk about. Some guys that we haven't really highlighted yet. Guys who did some things of note and might just be a little bit more interesting than we initially thought. So just a friendly reminder, we release new episodes twice each week, Fridays, and that may end up on Saturdays with our full feature-length episode, and Tuesdays with our shorter news and notes episode we call the Midweek Minutes. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're available on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and the Odyssey app. And leave us a 5-star rating, a like, a thumbs up, a kind review. It goes a long way in helping us out. Oh, and if there's anything you want us to talk about, drop us a message as well. So, Josh, before we get to our player spotlight of Roman Anthony, I have a very quick question for you.
Uh-oh.
Because you and I were going against each other in the 10-team league last week.
Oh, rub it in.
And we share
Is
a
this
lot of the
your
same players.
Eric's gloat segment?
No, it is not. I promise it's not. I've had plenty of opportunity to do that, and I haven't done it. There it is.
We'll save that for the end of the season when you win both leagues.
I don't know, man. I'm not willing to trade a first-round pick for...
Heavy is the head that wears two crowns.
My head will be sideways, especially when these
You'll
headphones
need
are also...
a neck brace.
I'll need it. So my quick question for you, Josh, is how do you root for a player who is on one of your teams in one league, but your opponent has the same player in another league? The giveth and taketh of Pete Alonso last week. I had him in our matchup together, but you have him in the other league where we weren't facing each other. So how do you approach that? I'm obviously rooting for Pete Alonso because I have him, but are you too? What happens?
Yeah, I think, it's a little bit of like a whiplash reaction when you get like the Yahoo notification on the phone. It's like Alonso homered for the 5th time in one game. That didn't actually happen, but it just felt like he was homering, prolifically last week. So yeah, it was kind of like a whiplash, like, yes, type feeling. But
yeah, it's never fun having to root for and against a player at the exact same time. And then what's even worse is if that player is on your real life favorite team. So if you're ever going up against like an Aaron Judge or Max Fried.
Sometimes when I'm like watching a Yankee game with my family and like I have a player on the opposing team, like sometimes I accidentally, like if the player like strikes somebody out or like hits a home run, I'll like, say like yay, or like let out like just kind of give up that I'm rooting for them. They're like, why are you rooting for the Red Sox? They're like, like that's like, oh, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. Sorry. You wouldn't understand.
No, they wouldn't get it at all. They're not in the fantasy realm, but that's okay. It's a special feeling that we get to feel rooting for and against your opponents and your favorite players at the exact same time. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but I think it's part of the fun. Without further ado, let's jump into our player spotlight of MLB's number one overall prospect, Roman Anthony.
Yeah, let Roman reign.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty exciting. I would say he's probably the most touted prospect to be called up this season. At least by all the prospect leaderboards and all those pro sites. So yeah, definitely exciting to get him up. I think the most he's done is not really strike out, walk, and I think he hit a double the other day off a pretty good pitch. He's kind of not with like a lot of fanfare. Like he hasn't homered or this or that, but I think he's kind of demonstrate. The exit velocities are good, and he's kind of showing off at least his hit tool in the early goings. Um, what have you seen, or what do you think?
Oh man, I always get excited when a prospect of this pedigree, prospect with this much buzz gets the call. Um, Fanfare. That was the word I was looking for. A prospect with this much fanfare gets the call because you hope for this like next superstar and you might see it
Yeah,
right off the bat, but you might not. Maybe we'll see it next year from Anthony. I don't know. We could see it next week, but we've talked about this I think a lot when it comes to these high-end prospects getting the call this year. It's like you don't know what it's going to be. It's a mystery box and that's just
yeah.
exciting. So
Hmm.
I think I haven't really seen much from Roman Anthony yet. The same could be said for Jackie Cags, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But
Hmm.
I think when you see a guy who in the minor leagues had a near 20% walk rate, who had massive exit velocities, what was he averaging like 95 miles per hour?
95.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's phenomenal.
And then he hit that what was it, like a grand slam, almost 500 feet.
Yeah, 497 feet. It would have been
Yeah.
I think it's like the fifth longest home run in the Statcast era or some
Yeah.
ridiculous number like that. I just with
Yeah.
Judge, Otani, Stanton, O'Neal Cruz, like I just can't believe that
They
Roman Anthony
I
is
think
up there.
yeah, I think after he hit that home run, I think the Red Sox front office, their hands were tied to bring him up.
Yeah, he's like,
Um,
excuse me. Do
yeah.
you see
There's
what I
also
can do
that
here?
that offense is just scuffling, and it's just like you gotta do something for the fans at least.
Yeah, I just see a guy with great plate discipline, good bat to
Hmm.
ball skills, and massive power. Now, his premium exit velocities, he did have a high ground ball rate, and it's easier to hit the ball harder into the ground than it is to hit it hard in the air. I think he had
Yeah.
like a 52 or 53% ground ball rate. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit concerning, but he's what, 21?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see this a lot with young players as even James Wood, I think, was started off last season with high, not like alarming ground ball rates, but they were a little high for the power we hoped and what he did develop into. So it might just be, I think that's just kind of the risk with a lot of these young prospects is it's just there's gonna be an adjustment period. Like look at Christian Campbell, also on the Red Sox. Like he was scorched April, and then he was just, crashed and cratered in May. So, now it's on him to to correct the course. When is he gonna do that? I don't know. Like look at Jackson Holiday. He was like even more highly touted than Roman Anthony last year, and he's just now starting to show his true promise. So, sometimes it just takes a while with these guys, even like Wyatt Langford, like he's another highly regarded prospect. He's shown flashes, but then he's also had, I think he had a really pretty bad May.
Oh yeah, it was not good. He hit like a buck 50 or something.
So I think part of my issue with, it's like people ask like, oh, who are the player comps for these rookies,
I was going
and
to ask you about that. Wonderful segue. Keep going.
yeah, so player comps, I find tricky with these prospects, especially in the context of like redraft leagues, because I could say like, oh, Roman Anthony, a player comp could be something like Bryce Harper or Christian Yelich, and then I feel like that gets in the managers' heads, like, oh, he's gonna be like Bryce Harper and Christian Yelich, but that's like, well, we don't know, first of all. Second of all, that would be at his peak. Like he's 21.
Right.
Like
He's like 3, 4 years away from even approaching the peak.
I would wager money that he would not reach that this year.
I
So
would too.
I feel like, you know, player comps are a bit misleading. Now, I think if you're like in a keeper league or a dynasty league, they're helpful because it's like, all right, well, who are the blue chip players that I want to invest in that could really, propel my team to, certain victories. So sometimes I think there needs to be caveats with player comps, especially in redraft leagues, because it's like, who I'm gonna, Roman Anthony, I'm gonna drop, Wyatt Langford for him, or some other struggling kind of more established player that because I would say like redraft is basically everyone's in a win now scenario. So I just think it's almost like you have to like wait and see almost, or like if you have the luxury of having like a bench spot, pick him up, but you're probably not. Like I'm not starting him. I have him in our 12 team league, but I'm not starting him.
No,
I'm
no,
not.
he's yeah, that's like me with Jackie Cags. I have him in the
Yeah.
10 team. I'm not starting him, but it's a good because we play in those keeper leagues like you were
Right.
alluding
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you have Roman Anthony in a keep forever league.
Yeah.
And you have like that is a great place. Stash him on the bench, just use a roster spot for somebody who could be a first round pick eventually or
Yeah.
like for not in that league, but like a first round pick value as
Sure.
a keeper, like that'd be phenomenal.
Yep.
So yeah, it's really great to stash him on the bench if you can. And yeah, player comps are hard. So I would say like rest of season, expectations right now. Would you put him in like your top 50 outfielders?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you? I'm gonna go down a little bit. Would you put him in your top 30?
Not right now.
So that means if you play in a 10-team league with 3 outfield spots, he's not a starting outfielder. He might become a utility bat, but and we're talking right now. In a month from
Yeah.
now, when he gets acclimated,
Sure.
he might very well be a top 20 outfielder. We don't know. We'll see.
I,
And
I I will say I think yeah right now I would hedge towards top 50. I do think he has the talent, the upside to be top 30.
yeah, absolutely. I
Um,
think
I know
he's
that's kind of splitting the difference, but
no,
you
no,
know,
no. This year to be top 30, I think would be an achievement for Roman Anthony
yeah.
because that means he's a startable outfielder in leagues. That means he's on the level of like Brian Reynolds or Seiya
Mhm.
Suzuki, like established talent. And we're talking, massive upside here where eventually he could be a first round talent with the likes of Acuna, where Yelich used to be, um,
Mhm.
Bryce Harper, like you said. I think Harper's a really good comp, actually.
Mhm.
Like long term ceiling. I like Bryce Harper as a comp. I know
Yeah.
different positions. Anthony may have a little bit more speed to his game, but I could also see them curbing
No,
his running.
Harper used to play the outfield.
That's true. That's true. Um, yeah, I would take that long term as a Bryce Harper comp. Maybe, and I don't even know if it would be a higher batting average to be honest. Yeah, you're talking about a guy who could hit probably like 270.
Mhm.
Clearly has 25, 30 homer upside. Has stolen 20 bases in the minors. Like this is a high quality talent coming up here, right? There's a reason he was the number one
Yeah.
overall prospect, consensus by everybody coming into the season. He was the name, the premier name to stash, better than Matt Shaw, better than Bubba Chandler coming into the season. Like this was the guy. Like you,
Yeah.
I believe, kept him in the Keep Forever League going
Yep.
into the
I
season,
did.
knowing that he wasn't making the opening day roster.
Yep.
That's the kind of talent we're talking about. Now, if for whatever reason he is a free agent in your league, who are you dropping? Give me an example of a guy that you're dropping to pick up Roman Anthony. Michael
Um,
Harris. I'll ask you about your favorite guys. Michael Harris. I'll start you there.
yeah, I guess I would, but every time Michael Harris like home run, like hits a home run or steals a base, I'm like, there's hope.
There's talent.
There it is. But then it's followed up by like, a bunch of one for fours and nothing to show for it. I guess so. Like, I think definitely like if people have like if people are, I think we can move on from Trent Grisham, Victor Scott, maybe even like Nick Castellanos.
I would drop Nick Castellanos for Roman Anthony.
Castellanos.
We'll get into name pronunciation later. I have a little note in the rundown for us. Yeah, I would 100% drop him.
Nootbaar. I would
yeah.
get rid of Nootbaar.
Oh yeah.
Austin Hayes is hurt, so hopefully.
Here's a question. How about now? Let's say you have your IL spots filled up, and you had Wilyer Abreu. Are you dropping Wilyer Abreu for Roman Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the reason I specifically bring up Wilyer Abreu is because I've heard rumblings, and because that was the corresponding roster move, right? Wilyer Abreu goes on the IL. They bring up Roman Anthony.
Yep.
I've heard rumblings that if Anthony doesn't kind of take off or, I guess, prove to be competent or however, like if he doesn't do the bare minimum, is what we're talking about here, he could lose his job and get sent back down when Abreu gets healthy.
I think so, but I think he would have to really struggle. To me, it feels like they brought up their top prospect, and I just don't see them yo-yoing their top prospect. I think that would be a really bad look for the organization.
Hold on, right there. Hold on. Let's be clear. This is an organization that I don't know if they care about good looks. Like, look what they're doing to Rafi Devers.
That's true. But I just think that's so unfair to like bring up the top prospect in all of baseball.
Yeah.
Just to have him up for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. No, I think they send Christian Campbell down.
Ooh. Okay.
I think they have other options that they can consider before just just giving Roman Anthony a quick look. I just think that's a bad call.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. The Red Sox have done some really stupid things recently, so you never know what kind of level of stupidity.
Agree, but I just feel like for me, like logically, it just does not make sense. Like, why bring up your top prospect only for like a week and a half?
I agree.
Or how I know it's like a short-term thing for Abreu, but I just think that's ridiculous.
I'll give you a couple more names to see if you would drop these guys for Roman Anthony. Would you drop Brandon Nimmo
in a redraft?
Yeah, redraft. In a keeper league, like I would drop any guy that we've mentioned so far. Okay. And somehow Roman Anthony is only 65% owned. So there are 35% of the leagues out there where he's not owned. Okay. So there are people that actually need this advice. If you play in a keeper league, go pick up Roman Anthony right now.
Yep. Nimmo. I mean, I think I would, just because Nimmo to me feels very fringe in our formats, the 10 and 12. He just seems kind of serviceable. I mean, pretty good season-ish. I mean, he has 13 home runs, not the best. Yeah, he seems very streaky, very fruitful when he's on, but just kind of meh when he's not. I mean, I would be inclined maybe not to, but I would say like if your outfield is stacked and your utility spot is set and Nimmo is just kind of on your bench toiling, I would make that swap. So yeah, I think if Nimmo is just kind of like a fourth outfielder in your your fourth outfielder in your 3 outfielder league, then sure, take a shot on the upside. But if Nimmo is part of your, you're a staple of your outfield, maybe not.
How about 71% rostered TJ Friedl?
Is Friedl playing every day?
Yeah, he is. He's having a really good season, actually. He's hitting 294, 823 OPS, 41 runs scored, 7 homers, 25 RBIs, 9 stolen bases. Right now in our 10-team league, he is the 69th most valuable player.
And yet no one is rostering.
I know. For a guy who could, I mean, he could go what? He could go 15, 30 and hit because he's increased his like plate discipline and all that stuff. He could go 15, 30 and hit 285. Like there's got to be some value there.
I think I'd go with Roman Anthony.
I would as well, just because I like the upside.
I kind of wonder. I kind of wonder if that like rest of way, like, is that Anthony's floor?
Yeah, I think it is
Something like that.
Yeah, I
Because
think
it was pretty underwhelming last year for Friedel. Like he hit 13 homers, 9 steals, hit 226 with a 690 OPS. I don't know that I really buy what he's done so far.
And last name I'll give you. Last 2 seasons, he's hit 20 to 25 home runs, driven in 80 to 86 runs, stolen about 13, 14 bases, and hit just about 250 with a OPS just under 800. And I give you those numbers on purpose. Ian Happ. Are you dropping Ian Happ for Roman Anthony?
I think I would. His power is just completely gone away.
Talk about a streaky guy. So
yes, yeah.
I would say I think Roman Anthony's predictive stats for the rest of the season will match Ian Happ. So to me, I would go with the upside of Roman Anthony over what I know the consistent floor is for Ian Happ. Only because of that upside, even though I think they're going to probably be damn near identical the rest of the season.
Also, Ian Happ was just injured, so I get a little concerned with injuries in season reoccurring.
Fair enough.
And also playing through nagging stuff.
I feel like that's like a yearly occurrence for Ian Happ, and yet somehow last year he played in 153 games, and the year before that 158.
I think he was on my
because you had him last year.
I had him last year. I had him this year for a spell because he's just been on our in our 10 teamer. He's just been on the waiver wire forever. And I keep looking at him like, gosh, should I pick him up over Michael Harris? which I've not made that move, so I guess we have our answer. So yeah, I don't know. He's just like I see, on a lot of these like on the major fantasy websites, a lot of the sites in their rankings have him like in the top 30.
Yeah.
And I just look at it and I look at Fangraphs and I'm just like, why?
Yeah, I know. I don't fully understand the love for Ian Happ. He's just sort of a guy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's like your fourth or fifth like pitcher in your rotation. He just is. It's like predictable, I guess, but it's never fun when you get there. He's the Merrill Kelly of hitting. You know what you're gonna get at the end of the year, but it's just like an up and down way to get there, and it's just it is what it is. But Roman Anthony, if you're in one of the 35% of leagues where he is on your wire, those can't all be NL only leagues. Okay, go pick him up. Drop anybody outside the top 30, I'd say in outfield. If you got a middling pitcher on the bench, get rid of him. Just go get him if you're in the 35% of leagues that's open. And if you play in a keeper or dynasty league, and for some reason you're in one of those 35%, like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
I don't care who it is. Make room. Figure it out. There's always someone you can drop. Turn over the back of your roster, like we talked about at the beginning of this season. All right, next up, Prospect Palooza. All right, Josh, next up, we got our Prospect Palooza. I know we've just featured Roman Anthony in our player spotlight segment, but here I've got a list of prospects, whether they have just gotten the call, whether they've made a debut a couple years ago and they're just back, just young players, basically, some in the minors, some in the majors, who are, I think, interesting. So first up, we're not really going to talk about him too much because we took a deep dive into him last week, but I did figure out how to properly say Jackie Kaggs' name.
Jackie Kaggs.
Yeah, I really wish it was. It's like a 1920 mobster name. It's just fantastic. But it's not, it is Jack Caglione.
Told you.
I know. There's no major surprise there, but that the proper way to say it is Caglione. And I'm really disappointed.
You know what his nickname is, according to Baseball Reference?
What?
Jackhammer.
Jack? Oh, I like that. I like that one.
Jackhammer.
Jackhammer. But heretofore on this podcast to be known as Jack Cags, because that is just awesome. Nothing really much to talk about here. He's looked decent in his start to his major league career, and we'll talk about him more in the future once we have a larger sample size. But making his major league debut yesterday for the Milwaukee Brewers, actually came out of the game with leg cramps.
Uh-oh.
Always fun to see. His big...
Gotta drink his water.
Yeah,
Hydrate, man.
He is a tall drink of water himself, apparently. He is 6'7", okay? Jacob Misiorowski, that is how you say the name. No confusion there. Jacob Misiorowski made his debut for the Brewers last night. 5 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. This is a guy who averaged 97 on his fastball at AAA this year. Topped out at 103. He's a fireballer.
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts on his debut? And what I really want to get into about him is this is a guy who had control problems in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
Thought he was destined to be a relief pitcher. However, got his walk rate kind of under control. It was a more acceptable 11% in the minors this year. Still not great. But we play in a league where we do K per 9 league, and we have a K to walk ratio league. And how in those two leagues, he could have very different value.
Yeah, I think a lot of excitement, as you said, around his velo. And I think his performance, I think he did well last night. I mean, certainly did not much better than his Sonny Gray in that matchup.
Misiorowski had 13 swinging strikes, if I'm not mistaken, which is really good in 5 innings.
And no hits.
No hits.
5
no-hit innings.
4 walks. So I think we saw the upside and we saw the warts. I would say pick him up, because I'm sure there's, you either have a boring player like Michael Wacha on your roster, or I don't know, maybe some guy that's just not, panning out at this point.
Would you drop Will Warren for him?
Ooh, I would say they're kind of equal, because they're like, Will Warren has shown a lot of good upside. His underlying numbers look actually pretty great. But he's also, volatile. So I would kind of put them on. I think I would stick with Will Warren at this point. Maybe I don't know enough about Misiorowski, but it just seems like...
No, that's fair. And I'll tell you why. Because of the way that they've yo-yoed Logan Henderson.
My God, yeah. Jesus.
I know Misiorowski is going to stick in the rotation. So maybe they view him better than Logan Henderson. But, I don't know. They could just decide to send him down, because why not? Because Jose Quintana is more important to the Brewers.
What the hell? But not Aaron Savale.
No, they DFA'd him, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they traded him.
Oh, they traded him. Okay,
to the White Sox for our man, what's his name? Their first baseman.
Andrew Vaughn?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, that's
You
fair.
didn't see that? Yeah, it happened today.
Oh, breaking news. Dun, 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 dun. Breaking news. Aaron Savale, legendary fantasy mediocrity, Aaron Savale, traded for even more legendary fantasy mediocrity.
Oh, disappointment, man. He was a top prospect.
Andrew Vaughn, former number 3 overall pick, came up. He was one of those guys, I think, that got the call the year after he was drafted. And he just never figured out how to pull the ball and hit it in the air at the same time. He was part of that White Sox team that was supposed to be really good.
I know.
Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Vaughn, whiff, strikeout. Anyway, back to Misiorowski for a second. Yeah, I think you're right. We saw the warts. We saw the upside. I like taking the upside approach again here to Misiorowski to see what he can do. I would, like you said, drop the boring player like Michael Wacha for the upside, because you can always go find a Wacha replacement. That is not hard.
Looking at his stuff plus, he has a 120 stuff plus.
Location plus.
Location plus is 95.
I mean, that's like what, slightly below average, but that's again, it's one start, it's 5 innings.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
120 stuff plus is
yeah.
bonkers.
That's crazy.
That would put him at above Scooble if he were to
Yeah.
maintain that. But
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely try and make room for him.
yeah,
If he's available.
okay. So I just want to just quickly touch on the league differences thing because I actually had Mizorowski stashed,
Oh, that's
and
right.
and I dropped him for a guy that we're going to talk about in a second. But I dropped him, and somebody put in a waiver claim for Mizorowski, and that's fine. And I'm actually okay doing that in that league because it is a K to walk ratio league. 5 strikeouts, 4 walks. I think that's a 1.2 K to walk ratio. So that's not good. Like good is like 3 and above. So I was really worried in the context of that league in particular that he would walk too many guys and hurt me in one of the ratio categories. And eventually, if you walk too many guys, they're going to come around to score. So then you hurt in the other ratio categories, right? But I think in our other league where it's K per 9, he may be more valuable because we don't consider walks at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think for a player like this, it's important to understand your league categories in your league context to see if it should be of any interest. So I think he's a curious case in that regard.
Mhm.
Unlike Roman Anthony, just go pick him up everywhere. Anyway, next up on the rundown, I've got Ronnie Mauricio, who was interesting when he came up in 2023. Hit a ball in his first at bat, 117 plus miles an hour, which was the hardest hit ball by any Met that season, including Francisco Lindor, including Pete Alonso. Tears his ACL, misses all of last season, gets the call after raking at AAA this year. Hasn't quite hit the ground running at the major league level. What do you think of Ronnie Mauricio at second base of all positions?
I mean, give me a warm body for second base. What a nightmare of a position. Limited interest. I think maybe 15 teamers. I think there's playing time concerns with him. I don't think he's playing every day, and Brett Beatty's also hitting well, so there's a bit of competition there. Yeah, I think in 10 and 12 leagues, you can probably just leave him on the waiver wire, and if he's hot and you need a second baseman, I think he's also third base eligible.
Yes, second and third base.
Yeah, so I think if he's hot, throw him in there. I mean, he does strike out a lot, so I think he'll probably be prone to slumps. And also, a long injury layoff. I wonder if there's going to be some rest, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not interested in him in our 10 and 12 league context. No.
Which is interesting again because we're in keeper leagues and a dynasty league. So I'm not interested in Ronnie Mauricio because of the strikeout rate. It was never really great in the minors, and I worry that that's going to rear its head.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already up near 30% to start this season. So I am worried about the lack of contact. He does make loud contact when he does make contact. And second base, like we've said, and your favorite position to analyze, is a total dumpster fire. So
Yeah,
anyone with a pulse, I think you said that earlier, anyone with a pulse could be interesting at that position.
Yeah.
Moving on to Philly's top prospect. I guess you could call him a top prospect. I actually don't really know if you could because he was old for every level. Otto Kemp.
I don't think so.
Yeah, Otto Kemp got the call earlier this week. I think he's a little bit old. He's like 25 or 26, and he's 25.
Remember Matt Kemp?
I do remember Matt Kemp. Don't tell me this is his son. I will lose my mind. He's not that old.
No. No, I saw this on the rundown. I was like, oh yeah, Matt Kemp was a guy for a couple seasons.
Matt Kemp was really good for a couple seasons. Otto Kemp probably never going to approach that.
No, I don't. I mean, it strikes out too much. I'm not interested in him.
Leave Otto Kemp on the wire next to Ronnie Mauricio. And lastly, a guy who has yet to make his debut, but the organization seemed to have cleared the path for him by designated Lamont Wade for assignment. Bryce Eldridge. I think he's interesting long term, right?
I think he's in the circle of discussion for of these kind of new first baseman call-ups like Nick Kurtz and Jack Caglione. I think just looking at Eldridge's numbers, the minors this season, he's striking out a bit more, so I'd put him behind those two, but he will hit for power, and I suppose, he could learn to lower that strikeout rate over time. But I think he's more interesting than Otto Kemp and Ronnie Maurizio, for sure.
I agree with you, even with the gluttony of first base, the gluttony of talent that has showed up at first base this year. We've seen that positions that seemingly become deep one season are not deep the next year. So I would just keep an eye on Bryce Eldridge in a dynasty context. If you can keep a minor leaguer like that, why not stash him?
Yeah, I think we've kind of hit the first wave of top prospect call-ups. So I would guess Bryce Eldridge would kind of be at the top of the list for like the late season cup of coffees.
September. Yeah.
Yep.
I can see that. He has struggled at AAA so far, but he is just 20 years old. So you want to talk about a guy who's old, young for his level. He is super young for his level.
So we'll see what he does over the next 2 months or so.
Right. But an interesting name there because the organization cleared a path for him. So the opportunity, if he can take it, is there. Last up, I want to talk about one pitcher here, is the number 2 overall pick in the draft last year. And I think he kind of goes with our Mizorowski conversation in a way, and I'll get to that in a minute. But that's Chase Burns. Chase Burns promoted to AAA as well recently. And if you want to talk about dominating the minor leagues, I mean, this guy seems like, and I know everyone's waiting for Bubba Chandler.
But I don't know. It kind of
this might be the guy.
Yeah, Chase Burns. There's just been rumblings around fantasy suddenly about Chase Burns. So I went and looked him up on Fangraphs, and I was just like, wow, he's like almost 13 K9, low walk rate, low home run rate, like 1.83 ERA, and it looks like XFIP backs it up. I picked him up immediately. I don't even have my NA spots taken already, but I'm holding him on my bench because it's just like, I gotta. Hopefully, he gets the call at some point this season.
I can't imagine that there won't be a spot in the Cincinnati rotation for him at some point. Now, you picked him up in our 10-team league, and I saw that and I went, man, I guess I got to pick him up in the 12-team league. If Josh is adding him, I got to add him. Like, what does Josh know that I don't know?
That's usually how it goes. If I don't pick him up in both places, it's like I'll pick him up and then I'll get a notification like 5 minutes later, Eric picked up. And sometimes it's the reverse. I think you did it with Shane Bieber.
Yep.
Obviously that didn't pan out, but so far. But I saw you picked him up, and I was like, wait, what? And then I like looked and I was like, oh, I didn't realize he was close to get going on a rehab assignment. And I was like, damn, I gotta pick him up.
Yeah. Look, we very much are the Spider-Man meme. And that's why I said you're my Spider-Man to my Spider-Man a couple weeks ago. And I really do think that Chase Burns is going to be the pitching prospect to pick up this year. Like, obviously, it was Paul Skeens last year. And then the year before that, there was like a slew of them, right? It was like Bybee.
Right, Yuri Perez.
Yeah, there was like a bunch.
A lot of them, man.
And so I think, you're right. This year is very much hitter focused. We've had Dolander, but he plays for the Rockies, so he hasn't really.
And he was hurt too. So.
And he was hurt. Yeah, he's warranted no attention from us. And we're still waiting on Bubba Chandler. But Chase Burns might be the guy. And so the way he ties into the Mizorowski conversation is, I had Mizorowski stashed in the NA spot in the 12-team league, and you picked up Chase Burns, and I went, oh no, he's actually going to be better he might be better for this league than Mizorowski. So I picked up Burns and I dropped Mizorowski, and here we are.
I think Burns is the higher regarded prospect anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Burns, second overall pick. I believe Mizorowski was a second round pick. If we're just going off of, like pedigree.
I think Burns is like a top 10 prospect right now.
Yeah, he very much is. I think he's going to be a great call up. And God knows in that league, nothing has changed. Last time we talked about my team in that league, I needed pitching help. And you know what? I think it's like 3 weeks later. And guess what? Still need pitching help. Nothing has changed. Still the first, though. Humble brag. Anyway, we have talked about a bunch of prospects here. Mizorowski, Mauricio, Kemp, Eldridge, Burns. And, of course, we spotlighted Roman Anthony. And we talked about Caglione in depth last week.
Yep.
I just want to highlight what could happen to a prospect.
Cautionary tales.
Cautionary tales. Andrew Vaughn, who we alluded to earlier, okay? Number 3 overall pick, could never figure it out. This is just very middling at best.
He had a future value of 60.
He's got a future value of 20 in my book now. So, Forrest Whitley was just traded for cash considerations because he was DFA'd by the Astros. I think it was like 5 years ago. Everyone was like, this is the guy.
Yeah.
You heard me just say that about Chase Burns. Cautionary tale. You never know what's going to happen. These guys can explode and be incredible. They could be Corbin Carroll. They could be Fernando Tatis. They could also be Andrew Vaughn or Forrest Whitley. And just never...
Gavin Lux.
Future value power of 70, okay? He hit his second home run last week. Right, exactly. They can just turn out to be average, below average, or not quite anything ever.
Or Joe Adell.
Nice segue into the next segment, our interesting players of the week. Look at you. All right, so first up on our interesting players of the week, Joe Adell. Well done there, Josh.
Thank you.
Joe Adell is turning heads again. I can't say we haven't seen this before, or have we? What do you think?
Oh, God. I feel like we've been down this road so many times. It's so exhausting. Yeah, I mean, the numbers all look good. I mean, I wish he was walking a bit more, but I mean, it's all looking great. StatCast looks good. I just feel like we've seen this before. Like, this is like all the stuff you want to see out of like a young bat. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I don't want to buy it.
I know. This is a guy who has burned us. He's 26. And we've been talking about Joe Adell probably since 2018 when he was 18 years old. I remember ESPN used to have a podcast, a fantasy baseball podcast, and those guys would talk about Joe Adell like he was the second coming of Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he has just not been that. I mean, this is a guy who struck out 40% of the time when he first got the call. He struck out 40% of the time 3 years later. Okay, so there was no improvement.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been down this road even last year. Oh, Joe Adell is doing something interesting. His expected stats look great. I will say this. His expected stats have never looked this good.
Yep.
Right? So there's something going on under the hood.
I mean, looking at his projections, like looking at the BAT-X, I could see a world where he gets close to 30 home runs, but hits 230 the rest of the way with some steals, not prolific steals, but some steals. So I guess that's like Taylor Ward.
Yeah. I look at Adell's swinging strike rate, though, and he had tremendous improvement from 2023 to 2024. 18% to 14%. And now this year, he's still
about
around 14. Right. He's still, swinging strike rate of 14% is not great. I'm looking for his pull. He's pulling the ball more than ever. His home run to fly ball rate is a little inflated based on the majority of his career. His fly ball percentage has actually gone down. His ground ball percentage has gone up. Maybe that's helping him a little bit because he's not popping up as much. I don't know. This is just so weird. I feel like he's 26, right? We've seen this and it's like, How could he change now based on being burned so much over the last 6 years?
I mean, this could be peak Joe Adell, close to 30 homers, 230, 240 batting average. Taylor Wardish.
Taylor Wardish, Spencer Torkelson-ish with a little more speed.
Oh, maybe.
Different position,
Yeah.
I know, but little Torkelson.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility. This is peak Adele.
At 26, it's very possible. But I guess ride the hot streak, juice the orange. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you get an injury or just want to rotate that bench, sure, pick them up. Cost you nothing.
All right, so next up on the rundown, I've got CES, not the Consumer Electronics Show, but Christian Encarnacion Strand. Back to our prospect conversation. Here's a guy who came up with a lot of fanfare because he had showed out in spring training one year and September the previous year or whatever it was, and desperate for first base talent. Everyone got really excited, and he was just not good. And we're talking like a 2-year span here. Is he of any interest? Keep in mind the gluttony of first base.
So yeah, I think there's definitely interest for him. I was actually interested in him because I noticed he was pretty productive coming back from injury. But then I think it was just looking at his plate discipline. I was just like, oh, this kind of just seems like a hot streak to me. His plate discipline is, it's kind of similar to Joe Adell's, although it's slightly better zone contact.
Yeah, it makes a little more contact than Adell, but the swing strike rate is just about the same.
He's definitely going to hit for power, especially in Great American Small Park in the summertime. I guess if you're in need of a fill in, or you just want to pick him up out of speculation, sure, I think he could be useful.
Joe Adell walks about 6 to 7% of the time. Encarnacion Strand walks 2% of the time. Okay. So this is a free swinger. Okay. I just don't see much there. And I drafted him coming into that hype season.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I don't really have any interest in him, not because I was burned by him, but because I just, like you said, I think this is just a hot streak. Came back from being injured, felt good. And I mean, he's 0 for his last 7. So I think whatever hot streak that was is gone. He may be useful, but there's been such a large amount of talent at first base this year. So I think he's kind of down that list. So not really interesting to me. Next up, I've got Evan Carter. Talk about another guy who came off the injured list again, is oft injured. And he's been on fire since he came back.
I sort of regret not having any more pickups in our 10-team league.
Don't make me pick him up, Josh. Don't make me do it.
But what can I do? Hands are tied. I picked up Palencia because he was dropped. And then he got the hold yesterday, but I needed the save. But anyway, such is my closer luck this season. Anyway, yeah, I'm actually interested in, out of all these guys, I think I'm most interested in Evan Carter.
Is he not platooned though?
That is I think that is the wart on Carter, is that he's been platooning. So I think maybe some of these numbers were a little inflated because he's platooning. However, the Rangers have had such a meek offense so far. I would guess, maybe they would want to play him more since he's actually producing. But yeah, he has been platooning, so that's sort of been maybe inflating his numbers a bit. But yeah, I mean, he's got power, he's got speed. I think he's probably more of a 250 hitter. Well, the other thing about him is he's off injured, so I think that would be a concern for, at least for investments and stuff. I'd be a little concerned about that. How reliable will he be?
I think if you've got a spot to play with, as is the case with a lot of the guys we talked about today, maybe pick him up. I know you're interested in him. I think your outfield situation is pretty set.
Well, yeah, that's true. I
um,
was just
yeah,
I just see like former top prospect setting the
yeah.
world on fire. Oh, what is this? And then it's like, should I ignore the platoon
You're
situation?
like a moth to a flame, Josh. All right, so next up on the list, a guy who's confounding even the most prominent pitching experts, Andrew
Yeah.
Abbott is I personally am just I don't care what his peripherals are. I don't care what he's doing right now. I do not think he's that good. And I will miss out on anything good about Andrew Abbott, even if it's 2 or 3 years worth of good, like,
Yeah.
valuable fantasy play, because I know in the long run, I'm gonna be right. And we will check in, and I'm going to be right about this. I
Oh,
have
we
no
should do
interest.
like an Andrew Abbott time capsule.
Any interest in Andrew Abbott?
You know, I think I had Andrew Abbott for his one bad start this season. I think I picked him up. This was like I think towards the end of April. I don't really remember exactly what, but I think he had a good performance, and I was like, oh, Andrew Abbott, maybe he's going to be useful. I don't know. So I picked him up. He was not, and I was like, well, I guess he is bad, like we all thought he was. So I dropped him, and then I think he followed it up with a good performance. Someone else picked him up, but this is in our 10-team league, and he's been rostered ever since. Yeah, I don't know. It's he's very confounding. From what I've heard, it's just comes down to his weird, funky delivery, which kind of reminds me of do you remember Joey Lucchesi?
Oh my god, yeah. Ooh, weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Andrew Abbott, if you have him, I guess ride it out until you can't anymore, but enjoy it while it lasts.
I don't think it's going to last very long. Projections have him with a mid-4s ERA, and his Sierra is 2 runs higher than his current ERA. I see a near 90% left on base percentage, and I just think that guy's lucky. 0.86 homers per 9 for a guy who's averaged almost 1.5 homers per 9 in his
Yeah.
career. The regression comes for us all, Josh. It's
Oh
coming
yeah.
for Andrew Abbott.
Dun, dun, dun.
One more thing I want to talk about. Bryce Miller went on the IL this week. He was pitching hurt. We know he has bone spurs in his pitching elbow. What do you do with Bryce Miller? Do you drop him? Do you stash him on the IL? Because you know when he comes back, unless he has surgery, he's still going to be pitching hurt.
I mean, I had Bryce Miller because he was going back to what we were talking about earlier. He was part of that prospect pitching wave a season or two ago with Bybee and Perez, and he was one of them. I had him. I think it's because he doesn't have like a deep arsenal. So I just think unless that one pitch is just super unhittable, he's gonna be volatile. And that was my impression having him. I know it was like his rookie season or whatever, but that impression has stuck with me. So I've always kind of faded him in drafts, knowing that. And I just haven't heard a lot of like, oh, he's developed a new pitch or this or that. So I've always kind of I know that's not like deep analysis, but I've just kind of faded him just because he just doesn't seem to have a big enough pitch mix to kind of
Yeah.
take like a number two, number one step forward in terms of pitching. And just injuries with pitching is I just kind of want to stay away from. So I think he's probably droppable. But if it's, I guess if you want to err on the side of caution, you can stash him. But yeah, I don't really have a rosy outlook for him, at least for this season.
Yeah, I think he's going to need to get those bone spurs removed before he can be an effective pitcher again. It's in his pitching elbow. Sure, leave the spurs in there. That's cool. I bet he's going to tear something else, and then it'll be out for even longer.
Yeah, I think we need compensating. So
Would you drop him for Clark Schmidt?
I'm a little disappointed that I didn't grab Schmidt in one of our leagues, and we both have him because then we could be the Schmitty committee.
Ah! The itty bitty schmitty committee. Nice.
Yeah, that's right. And also, I'm disappointed we both don't have shares of Will Warren because then we could have been the Warheads.
Look at all these team names. Missed opportunities, man. We've just
I know.
totally missed our opportunities.
Yeah, I think Schmidt, Will Warren, are both interesting. Kind of both. I'm not sure what. I mean, Schmidt seems to be kind of like a stable mid rotation arm. Maybe he could be better. I'm not sure, but for now, he seems to be pretty reliable. Will Warren seems more volatile, but he's shown a lot of whiff ability. So I think we're all kind of waiting and seeing if he can take a step forward as well. So yeah, I think those are both interesting names.
Anyone else off the top of your head that you could think of that you might drop Bryce Miller for him? Shane Smith, I
Yeah.
think, is still widely available. He's been pretty decent.
Yeah, I'd take him. Oh, Jamison Tyon was picked up.
I pass. I don't want anything to do with that bum.
He's been very good, but I don't trust it. I'm with you, but yeah, you can't really argue. Well, it's like weird. It's like 7 strikeouts, 2 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 2 strikeouts.
The Jamison Tyone experience. How about Matthew Liberatore? Would you drop Bryce Miller for Liberatore?
Oh God, I dropped Liberatore this week.
I know, I saw that. Maybe a good move in advance of the downfall coming.
Yeah, I picked him up because his underlying numbers still look kind of good, but then he's just like I've heard like his velo is kind of yo-yoed a bit, so I kind of wonder if we're regressing back to what he was, which is very fringe and probably matchup dependent. I don't know that I would do that because now Liberatore seems like he's more of like a streamer.
Probably, although I am stuck rostering him in the 12 team because, again, my pitching is not good. But we're going to wrap it up right there. We'll be back next week with 2 new episodes, a midweek minutes to get you caught up on all of the most important news and notes from around the league, and of course, our full-length episode as well. But to make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. Until the next time, for Josh, I'm Eric, saying see you next time.
Committee.